Kris and Mads, sisters who love a good story.
The only thing better than experiencing a good story is talking about it.
We're here for the unfiltered, unhinged conversations with fellow story lovers and storytellers.
And the occasional rant or rave about the shit that rips our hearts out and puts us back together again.
The stuff that makes us laugh till we pee our pants.
And the ones that teach us what it is to be human. Welcome to the sisterhood.
Hey everybody, thanks for coming to our show. Today we have an exciting author with us. This is John Fennec. He is the author of Artificial Artifacts. John, thank you so much for being here with us today.
It is wonderful to be here with you. Thank you very much for inviting me.
We loved your book and we can't wait to talk all about it. However, we first want to start off with two truths and a lie. Did you prepare?
I did prepare. So the first one is I am a migrant. I grew up a migrant in the United States of America. Number two is my tech investing career was thwarted by a sock puppet. Number three is I once stole a basketball on the court from Michael Jordan while he played for the Chicago Bulls.
What?
Whoa, these are very different than I was anticipating.
Also, I believe none of them. Are you cheating and are all of them lies?
What?
Okay, I feel like...
Okay, so immigrant, sock puppet, derailing hand, Michael Jordan. What?
I feel like it's the sock puppet. I feel like his tech
That's really
investment.
outlandish.
I'm going to go. Do you agree?
Yeah, let's go with
We're
that.
going to go that number two is your lie.
Okay, it is not. That is actually true. I did not steal a basketball from Michael Jordan. My friend did. He ran on the court and stole a basketball from Michael Jordan when we were
Oh my gosh.
young. But my tech company career was thwarted by a sock puppet when I took a job investing in tech right out of college, or actually right before I graduated from college at the height of the dot-com boom. And I was sent a prospectus for a company called Pets.com, whose mascot was a sock puppet. And I looked at it and I read the prospectus and I realized I had no idea what I was doing. So I called up the gentleman who had hired me to invest in tech for him and said, I'm sorry, I'm not as smart as you think I am. And I'm going to go get another job.
What? That's a great
story.
story.
Gosh.
Wow,
So
what a way.
You did grow up in the United States.
I grew up in Texas. My family immigrated from Poland in the early 80s, correct.
Okay. Wow. Okay. And now you live in the UK.
And now I live in London, and London is home and has been for the last 20 odd years. So.
Okay.
Oh my gosh.
We won't ask you to tell us which you prefer. We already probably know, and we probably already agree with you. So.
Okay, fair. We'll keep it that way.
Yeah, we'll keep it that way. Well, we would love to talk about artificial artifacts first. We absolutely love this book. And to be frank, we were shocked that we did because we don't consider ourselves to be short story girls.
No, and I'm the one who test drove this book first. We always ask authors to send us the first 3 chapters of their books. And I was like, you know what, Maddie, I'll take this one. And if I'm feeling like it's good, I'll pass it on to you. So we don't both spend time reading it. And I was like,
it's great.
This feels like a yes, but Maddie was like, Kristen, we've got so much on our plate. This is a very busy season for us. We've got a lot. Let's push it off. And I was like, I feel really good about it. But then there was a sign, and the sign was Thomas Weaver posted on his story on Instagram that he was loving your book as well. And I said, Maddie, I told you, not just me, but Tom is liking this. We need to read this book. So you got us. The first 3 chapters got me.
The joke is on me. I was an idiot because this is brilliant. And so we would love for you to just tell our audience, first and foremost, in your own words, what this book is about and why you wrote it.
Sure. And this is my first podcast, so bear with me. So what this book is about, it's 11 interrelated stories. The first part focuses on our future world with AI in very varying degrees of, I would say, expansion, evolution, and intrusion into our lives. And then it takes a bit of a kind of a turn in the second part, and it starts exploring time and space and the concept of time and space, and a little bit back toward humanity and what matters in life, and kind of an introspective view on what is what is success in life, whether it's innovation or just being satisfied with your life. So I wanted to, kind of round it out full circle. But it was a lot of fun to write, and the short story format was done on purpose for a number of different reasons. I think the one was to explore a lot of different voices in a future world, to explore a lot of different, I would say, viewpoints as well. So to allow this book to be both haunting and exhilarating at the same time, because that tech could be both. It could be both hugely inspiring, hugely beneficial for society, but also does have its pratfalls and does have its major warning signs, which we're probably experiencing today in various degrees.
Yeah. And who did you write this for?
I wrote this for my kids. So the reason why, that's a good question. The reason why I wrote this book was primarily for my kids. And it was born out of letters that I write to them. I've always been a writer, but I don't have, my professional career just takes up so much of my time. And with 3 young kids, you rarely have any time for anything else. So over the past 6 years, I've really only spent my creative outlet has been to write them letters, and I write them letters probably once a week, and it's usually about them. It's usually about a family, and then AI and Chat GPT came out, and suddenly I saw a lot of my letters were talking about this new innovation and how it could really change the world. And my view was that, this looks like the innovation, akin to the fire pit, akin to the wheel, akin to, the plow or the steam engine, things that will truly reshape our society. And there's a lot of things that I saw with technology, as a whole, including how they were interacting with technology in a negative way. So my daughters are 5.5 years old, and if we give them an iPad and then we try to take it away, they're like heroin addicts. They really freak out. So that's a really scary thing when you see that, and you see that, kind of their immediate draw to that technology. So I started writing letters, to them about what their world might be. All of these letters are designed for them to read when they're 18 years old. So they won't get it until they're 18. So I could speak to them as adults. And then suddenly I realized these are really cool, stories. So I sent it to my business partner, who's an avid reader. And I think he was listed by the Financial Times as one of their #1 downloaders of 2023. So he reads all the time. Okay. And so I sent it to him. And he came back and he said, "This is really interesting. This is really cool. You should keep writing, write more." And so over the summer of 2023, I just cranked out probably, 6 or 7, of these things,
Oh my
and
God.
sent it to him. And he became, even though he's not a professional editor at all, his name is Blake, by the way. And huge shout out to Blake. This book would not have been, this book would not have been a reality without Blake. He basically became my first non-professional editor and gave me advice for, I'm not a professional author. This is my debut book. And he gave me a lot of advice on how to, kind of not try so hard on writing. And he just said, write your story. Don't try so hard. He could tell when I was trying too hard. And out popped up, artificial artifacts. And it became a lot of fun to write and edit and to put out to the market.
Amazing.
You can tell now why it's so different. It was letters you're writing to your children. This totally checks out now why it is the way it is. But I almost feel like it reads like that. Like it reads very personal, like a letter written to you, like whether it's a precautionary tale or there's a nugget of a lesson here. That makes so much sense now.
Yeah, I also think what's so strong about it's shocking to me that you're not a professional writer, because
very shocking.
The narratives are very tight, very clean. Obviously, we're prolific readers, and it has a lot of polish to it. I actually felt like what I need to get over my feeling that I don't like short stories, because when they're interconnected like this, it actually feels more like one of those episodic TV shows, like a Black Mirror or something, where every episode is kind of its own vignette told, like, as you said, from its own point of view, but we're kind of tackling the same speculative idea in all of them, but you're just getting it from different points of view and through different kind of
like lenses.
And with something like AI, it's the perfect way to explore it, because there's going to be people who, like in your book, they're engaging with it like in the medical field, and it has completely changed medicine, potentially for the better. Although that tale is a little also sinister. But then there's, how does it affect the music industry? How does it affect fitness? How does it affect
dating?
And it was
That
just
was
like,
crazy.
yeah, it's literally going to affect so many facets, and it would actually be more of a challenge and more limiting in scope to try to cover all of that from one point of view. So I think it was brilliant that
That's
you
true.
did it in short stories, and I wouldn't have it any other way, but I think my original bias was against it.
Well, I'm really glad you enjoyed it, and thank you very much. I mean, look, I grew up writing, so I've been writing all my life, and I have stacks of unpublished stuff, and I never thought I would publish. I always thought I would retire, and then I would start writing in my retirement. When I saw what AI, how quickly it was growing and how creative it could be, I got worried. And so I actually said, well, actually, in 10 years, 20 years' time, is everybody who has an idea going to be able to let AI write a book for them? Now, I hope that doesn't happen, but my fear was that it might. And so I said, I actually have to beat this innovation and prove that I actually am an author, so I could actually retire knowing that I am an author, and I could prove it to myself, prove it to my family, prove it to my kids that I am an author. And that was my lifelong dream. So that was the reason why I actually published. Otherwise, I would have just kept it as short stories and letters to my kids. And I'm really glad I did that. And it's the reason why it's called artificial artifacts. It's left as an artifact, and I guess it's a little I would say slightly cynical, but potentially a little bit extreme to call it an artifact. But there is a chance in the future that my kids, when they're 18, they pick up these letters and they pick up this book and they said, oh, well, that was written at a time when human beings, put down their creativity unassisted by machines, or didn't even outsource or didn't outsource their creativity to machines. And I hope that doesn't happen. I hope that never happens. I hope we use that as a tool to increase our creativity. But there is a chance that that they might look at it and say, just like, we possibly look at a fax machine today and say, what was that? Or a rotary phone and say, what was that? They might look at a book and say, oh my gosh, like that was actually just written by a human before machines could do it. And I hope that doesn't happen. But that was the reason for me to name it an artifact.
I think it's brilliant. I'm so curious if you're willing to speculate a little bit here with us. What ways do you think that AI could have an impact on authorship, publishing industry, maybe outside of AI just writing the books for us? Like, do you think AI could end up editing books or distributing? Like, when you speculate, what do you think, positive and negative? What kind of effects do you think it's going to have on our industry?
It's a very good question. Well, one is I hope that it shortens the time for authors to get to market from a production and marketing standpoint. So I think from a production and marketing standpoint, I think it's a wonderful tool. Editing, I would say, for folks to be careful about. AI is very good at piecing together a bunch of data and then creating formulas and then piecing it together. But I would hate for it to become an editing tool because everything will sound the same. There's a very interesting graphic on Google where you can look up the historic word usage of different words, which I'm kind of a data nerd, so I look this up all the time. And if you look up the word delve has had historic very low percentage usage throughout our entire history. It starts, I think, in the 1800s. It shoots up, and the trend line is almost completely vertical once GPT came into effect. And it overuses the word delve. So if you see the word delve, there's a high probability that it's been written by ChatGPT or edited by ChatGPT. So be careful about that.
Oh my God.
I'm going to judge all of my books now that I love and be like, did AI write this?
No, AI is not writing our books right now. No, they are
But
not.
I will tell you this. Well, what's interesting is the word underdelve historically had a higher usage and now has dropped down to 0. So if we can bring back underdelve, that would be a great word to counteract the AI trend.
Oh my gosh.
We'll bring it on our channel is what we'll do.
That's fascinating. If you don't mind sharing a little bit, maybe just at a high level, what is your background with AI? Because it sounds like you think a lot about it and you've obviously imagined a lot of uses for it. Yes. So what is your background with it? And are you optimistic about it or are you pessimistic about it?
So my background, I'm personally invested in a few of those companies. In my professional life, I think everybody is trying to figure out how to use AI to increase productivity. So, I would say in a nutshell, my involvement with AI is a user. I don't code. I don't, do anything. So it's really a user or an investor, into that space. Is it positive or negative? I think it could be both. I mean, if I look back at, technology and the technology revolution over the last 20 years, there's been very good and there's been pretty bad. I mean, there's the addiction rates are high, whether we, like to admit it or not. Our screen time is through the roof. What has it done to the King's English, if you will? Because I live in London. With Twitter and X and in the kind of social media and texting, has it changed the fabric of our communication? And now we just speak in short bursts rather than long tails. And so I question what it's doing to our society. And this is technology on the outside, and this is a technology that's really only learning us through algorithms on the keystrokes that we type into the computers. Now imagine if AI can actually detect what you're thinking and feeling by being closer to you, like a fitness watch or potentially nanotech like sonar immersion in the book. And those things do scare me a little bit more because the tech on the outside, just a lot of these social media companies have already reshaped, either elections or, kind of social thought by effectively kind of just slowly manipulating, I would say discourse on social media channels. And that's a little scary. So I think I am very pro tech, but I am very nervous about human usage of tech, if you will. So, it's like a drug. A drug is made and it's good for you and it makes you better. You use it recreationally and use it too much. That's probably something that's a little scary.
Yeah, I was just thinking that as you were saying it, that some of the tech you allude to in the book, I imagine a step further that if we were able to use nanotech in a way that, or not even nanotech, but a kind of symbiotic tech that would help with like mental illness, on one hand, that's very good. And on the other hand, like the idea that we would surrender our moods and our feelings to tech, that is hugely dependent on whoever's either teaching it or programming it.
Yep.
And what our values as a society are. Like, how much pain do we allow? And isn't pain part of life? And isn't, feeling bad part of the human experience? It's like, as we try to improve things, whether we include tech or not, obviously will, but it's like we have to have a tolerance for integration of feelings, of all feelings, right? And it's like, if we're only focused on feeling good or curing everything and life expectancy being forever, like that's not necessarily a net win for the human race.
Yeah,
I agree. I think it's beautiful to be human and it's beautiful to be finite. So there's beauty within that. And I think that's kind of what I wanted to get across with this book. And I'm really glad you enjoyed the short story format. I'd like to give a shout out to what I grew up with, which was a lot of short story formats. Like Illustrated Man changed my life when I was a kid. A lot of the Stephen King short stories, he was excellent at those. Hemingway has written some phenomenal short stories that when I was a teenager, I read. And what I love about the short story format is if it's done the right way, you can get to know the character in such a quick, succinct way. And then it also leaves your open your own creativity to create a story around them after the story is done. And so a lot of these stories are open-ended and invite questions to the reader to then make up their own story about what happens afterwards. And I've always enjoyed that as a reader. And so I wanted to do the same as an author.
You did such a good job. It's interesting. We'll read books, a lot of books. And when a book is done and dusted, right, and it's all clean and tidy, like you're saying how some books are, you'll talk about them. But this is the kind of book, like I immediately, when you gave us some extra copies, I gave it to my dad over the weekend because our dad's in tech and all of his brothers are in tech. And they're obsessed. Like we have these conversations as a family all the time, but like I want to talk to him about this and I have like questions for people and I'm like, where do you think that could go?
Yeah.
This is the kind of book for anybody listening that is going to be coming up for you frequently. Every single time I grab my phone to sit on the toilet, TMI, I'm like, Kristen, this is an addiction. You need to set your phone down. And I think about in your book, there's one short story that I was like appalled at how gluttonous humanity was for their tech in this short story. Like it was appalling. It felt like somebody who just like was gluttonous for food or drugs, but it was tech. And I was like, holy shit, we're actually already there. Instead of it feeling future, it actually felt very present, but you had just put it in such a dramatized way that I could actually see it for what it is.
It is. Your work is confronting. And I think that's important. I think that is the best of speculative sci-fi, is when, as the reader, you feel seen and not always in
and you don't always like it.
Yeah.
Well, I'm so glad you enjoyed it. And by the way, it wasn't designed to be preachy, because I am a tech addict. So I'm on my email all the time. Now I have the book out, so I'm now obsessed with seeing what's happening with the book. Do people like it? I am fully immersed in the tech world, and my wife has to like grab the phone, turn it off, set screen times for myself. So I am an addict. It's not like I'm saying, oh, let's caution, because I know better. I'm right there with everybody else. And it's, I think we all have to just be reminded of the fact that, this stuff does, pull you in, and be conscious about pulling yourself out once in a while.
Yeah. So now that you have this book under your belt, does it make you eager to write the next thing? Like, do you feel like you've been bit by the writer's bug and you're like, I'm good at this. This is great. I should keep doing this?
So I've always I've always been bit by the author's bug. So I will continue to write, and I will continue to do this. I love it. I even if no one sees another work of mine, I will continue to do it because it's what I love. It's what I was born to do, and I feel good putting words down on a page. Whether I publish or not in the near future, I don't yet know, because the time of actually getting to publishing, what I found is the business end of the book market. It was more time consuming than I expected. And I have a wife and 3 kids and a full-time career. And I do have a book that I'm writing right now. I'm obsessed with simulation theory, and I've started writing it. And my wife said, can you wait until our kids are a little bit older? Because my poor wife over the last year has had to sacrifice dinner dates, beach time, flights when I am locked into my laptop writing, because that's really the only time that that I had afforded to myself to write. And a huge shout out to my loving and very, very supportive wife for allowing me to do my passion. But I do owe it to her to give her a little bit of respite from my very time consuming passion. But that's okay, because whilst the first book was written in a short period of time, as I mentioned, it was June until really December when it was written sporadically over that time period. The next one, now that I know how readers react to my writing, I think I know now how to best craft my next work in a novel format. One, it won't be one linear story, but 2 linear stories about simulation theory that I'm absolutely obsessed with. But I will craft that over. I will have more time to craft that, and it will be a lot of fun doing so.
Okay, for those of us, me out here who don't know what is simulation theory?
So simulation theory is the question of whether we are living in a simulation, in a program,
like in the Matrix.
If you've seen the Matrix, that is part of simulation theory.
Okay, I love this.
Yeah, and then the question is, could we create our own simulated worlds in the future, where the people or the beings in those simulations or those programs don't actually know that they are in a simulation? So it's a really interesting, thought process, and it's something that I've been talking to coders, game programmers, and they're all asking themselves that same question. There's a few professors that I've gotten to know that study sentience, and so it's a real question about what is sentience, and whether sentience is, how far does sentience extend? Does it extend to platform, to insects, and also to AI? At what point is AI sentient? And at what point do we have to start thinking ethically about its rights? And that's something that that this book, Artificial Artifacts, didn't explore. But I am very interested in the concept of if we make if a machine does become sentient, at what point do we as a society need to start thinking about its rights? So
yeah. Well, and
like in Westworld.
yeah.
Yeah.
Like I loved you watched that.
I have watched the first season, but I,
Same.
again, with my time constraints, I haven't picked up the rest. But it is down that line of concept of thinking about our society and thinking about also just how we have created stories amongst ourselves, how we created mythology. And some of the stories where we go back to almost biblical times, I start questioning if it's almost kind of putting that into a what if scenario. What if it was in a simulation form? What would those stories actually, be? And so it's a lot of fun. So that's something I'm writing. I probably have given already way too much away, but it's a lot.
Oh no, you just made us hungry.
So excited. I'm like, I respect your wife, and I know you need to take a couple years off, and also like chomping at the
How
bit for
important
that.
is your full-time job?
Do you really need to be working or not? No.
You need to be doing the Lord's work, which
Just
is writing this book for us.
Well, thank you. I really appreciate that. That means a lot. I grew up writing, and where really the only people that said that I was good are my parents, and especially my mom. Thinking, extending that, and your mom saying that you're good at writing, and then thinking that you're going to be a published author and successful is like your mom saying you look good in a suit, and you start thinking you're Brad Pitt. So I think you have to be very careful with your own hubris. Now,
Yes.
God love mothers.
This is not a question. I just do want to insert, other than your parents, I have enough hubris to say I read a lot. I feel like not only is your book technically very clean and very tight, but it converted me to enjoying short stories. And I felt like it was incredibly emotionally powerful and thematically rich, which is what I read for. So I am very excited to read whatever you write next, because I just know that you already have that recipe that I enjoy so much.
Yeah, that like build up to, like, I love books that when I'm reading them, I'm like, am I sure I know what's going on? Like, I couldn't really be lazy reading your book, which I appreciate.
Yeah.
I couldn't really be lazy. I had to pay attention. And by the time it got to the end, the emotional punch was so strong. Like, I was like, who else do I know that's read this book? And I'm always like, I need to talk about it. So me and Maddie got together and talked about it. Maddie mentioned something, which I can't say without spoilers. And I'm like, what? Like, I completely missed.
Did you catch that Easter egg? And she was like,
fuck, I'm so mad.
I just immediately wanted to go back and reread it. Like, I was like, and then I wanted to go back.
I think we had an interview. We got together and Maddie had finally finished it. So her and I are gabbing. This is the kind of book, listeners, that you are going to want to talk to people about. So just DM me and Maddie if you need to.
Yeah. Or get a buddy.
Or message. And we're just like chatting. And we had to go into an interview and I'm sitting there and my face is completely blank because I'm still thinking about your book. Because it just like, it does a number on your brain, guys. It does a number on your brain.
It's a good one.
But just so good. I cried. I said, how is a tech book making me cry right now?
I think we maybe are obsessed with what's real right now with artificial intelligence, but it's like beyond just what's real physically, like is AI sentient or are these potential technologies positive or negative? It's like at the heart of what's really real is actually what is meaningful. And maybe the question shouldn't be what's real, but maybe the question should be what matters. So I would love for you to talk a little bit about themes, about just how you're wrestling with that in your mind and the heart of your story.
I'm really glad you picked up on that. It is definitely about what is meaningful and what is real in life and what matters. And it's my interpretation of it, or it's my personal interpretation of it. So it was less about tech. I think tech was almost kind of like the concept that allowed that message to come across. It was more, there's two themes that kind of are maintained throughout the book. On one hand, there's, that we talked about it already, which is this tech a drug. And so there's a lot of different types of, kind of either very direct or very subtle references to drug use, whether it's an epidemic that's happening or people actually are addicted to their technology. And the second one is a question about success. And by the way, really quick shout out, if you're hearing my son, I know, I think you said I wrote it for my daughters. I wrote it for my daughters and my son, who's right now crying in the other room. So shout out to my son, my 1-year-old son. So, the other theme is really about success. And so Peter Burrell is a central character, but really kind of only really appears in two places in the book. But he's a tech mogul, and he's a genius, and he's, these people. He's the Elon Musk, almost Edison, type of character in the book. Thomas Edison, somebody who has kind of revolutionized or innovated society. And so it questions the concept of genius. That's the first one. Is I'm obsessed with genius, and I'm obsessed with why some people are just naturally see things that other people do not. And we call them geniuses. And so as a son of two physicists, I have always kind of questioned things in a scientific manner. And so I said, what if genius was just clairvoyance to something, to some different time space? And I read an article by, it was an interview with Paul McCartney, I believe. I'm pretty sure it was Paul McCartney, but don't write me hate mail if I'm wrong. Where he said that the way he writes music is he just grasps a melody from the air. So he just hears the music and he just takes it. And he says that there's music that just floats around time space, and he's just lucky enough to grab it. And I found that really interesting. So, what if the genius songwriter just has clairvoyance to this another time space and is able to just kind of pull these things together? So that was the idea of Peter Burrell a little bit. But to go back to your point about what is real and what is not, it's just a question of if genius, if innovation and all of that is just this kind of clairvoyance to another time space, or another dimension that we just don't understand yet as three-dimensional beings, then what is important in our lives? And is it to be the most successful person in your industry? Is it to make more money than the other person? Is it to achieve that, whatever that pinnacle is that you want to achieve?
Yeah.
Is that going to be, what's real in your life? And this book allowed me to explore that for myself as well, and to actually say, no, perhaps it's not the most important thing. And when I wrote the shortest short story in the book, which is called Memory Service, that one is a 150-year-old woman, and she is looking back at her life. She's in an old folks home, and she's offered a technological advancement that would allow her to see all of her memories in crystal kind of HD, quality. And she's just thinking back through her life. And when I wrote it, I just wrote it very quickly. But what was very clear there is there was nothing about work. There was nothing about achievement. It was all about family. And it was all about that time spent with your family in the moment that matters. And that was very therapeutic for me to write. Because we all have stress in our daily lives, and I'm one of them. And we all want to succeed and we want to achieve. And we think that somehow that's going to make us feel better about ourselves. This book was a form of therapy to allow me to say, actually, no, that stuff doesn't really matter as much as you think it does.
Yeah, that story was really powerful for me too, because I loved that some of the theme was that you are the sum of your experiences. And so I don't want to spoil it, but as she's wrestling with the question of whether she wants the tech or not, she is asking herself, do I really need to remember all of those things perfectly crystal clearly, or is it all in me already? Yeah. Like, am I the sum of my experiences? And I thought that was beautiful. That was definitely one of the things that choked me up. I'm like getting choked up right now. That was beautiful. Good. I also, as we're talking about pieces of your story, your online dating story,
that was crazy.
I thought that the concept of AI doing your initial flirting for you, that makes me think about having AI as a personal assistant who decides who's worth your time and what makes it onto your schedule and whatnot. That's exactly where my mind went of if we had the tech to flirt with people for us and interview potential partners for us, why wouldn't we just have personal assistants that decide who's what friends are worth our time, what parties we say yes to, what weddings we go to? I was just on one hand, I see the convenience. I do see that is a huge time investment that I think people sometimes think is a waste of time if you don't end up dating the person, or if it does. But on the other hand, I'm just oh my God, that would ruin everything.
No, yeah, there's a part of us that and I want to say it's American, but I think it might be global at this point, that the laziness that hangs out of our pants every day. It blows my brain how a society's like this right now, but your book again just like kind of takes it to an unhealthy level. But we're headed there, right? But it
Yeah.
makes you look at right now, here and the now. In what ways are we just like lazy as fuck, and we're just not willing to invest in people? We are so obsessed with our image in society and how we are perceived by all these people who don't matter. And I'm like, your book was like so much more focused on, so based off of the things that matter, how much are we investing in that?
Right. I think it's interesting, John, that the tech specifically in that story is about expediting a result instead of living the process.
Mm-hmm.
Do you think that the artificial intelligence, because it's algorithmically programmed at this point, is it just results focused, and can it evolve to not be just results focused?
I don't know the answer to that. I think you're right that tech usage has unintended consequences, and
Yeah.
they tend to be to kind of just shorten or cut what we believe is the unnecessary time that we have spent in more antiquated kind of processes. So
Yeah.
take for example shopping. We used to go physically shopping for clothes and for for virtually for everything,
Yeah.
where now e-commerce is a major component of our lives, and we
Yeah.
get things dropped off at our doorstep. And how much of the kind of the natural meeting points that you would have as you went shopping physically. And I remember, I'm a '90s teenager, so we had the movie Mallrats, which came out, which is about people hanging out in shopping malls, and that's
Yeah.
how we grew up. And that doesn't. I'm sure it probably still happens, but not to the same effect of actually being there to serve a purpose. Because in a lot of cases, the amount of physical shopping needs has declined. So the convenience, you're right, the convenience has changed certain aspects of our lives, and the unintended consequences of some of the things that we do. I try to make it a little bit more satirical and, I guess, subjectively funny in a sense, where the online dating company that you referred to is called Veridate. And Veridate in the book has become the dominant online dating company because it has verified users. And in the future, not too distant future, we all get very sick of deep fakes and whatever catfishing and whatever, kind of people faking their profile or being bots.
Sure.
And so it teams up with a fitness watch company called Fitswear, which effectively maps. I'm wearing a fitness ring, by the way, right now, which maps out my sleep patterns and maps out my even my moods. It tells me when I'm stressed and not. But in the future, this fitness watch company can map out my entire body and can actually project me down to the follicle about who I am. So Veridate has teamed up with a company called Fitswear to provide its users fully verified users. And so now everybody's using it. And it has an adaptive tool, which allows you to say, actually, you can save all the time, with the early chit chat by having your AI understand your personality and mimic your personality. And then it has, I want to give away too much, but it has hugely kind of, I would say, scary consequences associated with that.
Yeah, like the potential negative consequences are so high that I'm just like, I want to believe that even 20 years in the future, no value of convenience could possibly displace our hopefully global neuroticism about what the negative consequences could be. But I say that and I look around what we're doing now, and I'm sure there could be similar like neurotic views on a lot of the things that we all just take for granted now and do. So, it's definitely worth thinking about. It's definitely worth like exploring caution. Yeah. Well, John, I'm so curious how you don't have to tell us, but we'll tell you if you want, but how you're using ChatGPT or how you're using AI right now in ways that you think are like positive and helpful and enhance your life.
So I use it a lot for work. So we have Chat GPT I use personally, but we actually have a corporate GPT that we've been training. It's allowing us to, in some of our investments, to make them more ESG friendly. So actually being able to monitor carbon usage and being able to be smart about carbon usage, that's a really positive thing. And then also how to actually become better investors. So to be able to kind of upload documents in and being, able to kind of break up data and being able to utilize data in a faster, more efficient way, like a calculator, to make more informed decisions. So I do that in my professional life. In my personal life, I play. It's a toy. I play around with it. So it's I have a couple of things where basically I've cloned my voice, and if I'm not at home, I do a bedtime story. I type in a bedtime story, I send it home. You can push play on this app called, Speechify, and it will just play my story in my voice, when I'm not there. So that's kind of helpful.
Wow.
Wow, I need to do that.
I'm shocked. Yeah, I believe that you had a fun, impressive little thing to show us about 2 truths and a lie that AI can do, right? Like,
yes.
Technically, you wouldn't have even had to give us 2 truths and a lie at the beginning of this episode because AI could have done it for you.
Yes. So should we try it here? So hello, this is ChatGPT. It's Omni. It's not the O1, which is the new strawberry version, but it's Omni. So I'm on the Kris and Mads podcast, and can you please provide 2 truths and 1 lie about yourself?
Sure. Let's see. I've been offered the chance to edit the screenplay of an indie movie.
What?
2. I'm a lifelong writer who's been published for the first time. 3. I've recently taken up skydiving as a hobby. Which one do you think is the lie?
It thinks it's me, by the way. So it's answering as me. So it has enough data about myself because I use it. So that was it.
So were 2 of those things about you true?
Yes.
Well, I know the one was. So what was the other one that was true?
Skydiving. Safe.
Oh my God.
God.
That's insane. Okay, so AI can now do this.
I'm pretty sure it guessed. I'm pretty sure it doesn't know. That is scary. If it does, if that thing knows that I've never gone skydiving, I am now scared.
Oh my God. It just like basically compiled what it knows about you to deliver that. That's insane.
Yes.
So privacy is an illusion in 2024, right?
I believe at some point we will want our data verified, and we'll want it private, but I think it will be too late. And a lot of the stories have a little bit of a kind of political satire and government satire, because I do question at what point does public, fake data coincide with government-controlled fake data, which we've had for all of our humanity and all of our history, and which is worse. So there's a little bit of satire associated with that, and I do find it really interesting that we speak more about censorship today when we have the ability to say more than in any point in our human history. So we can reach an audience faster, than any point in our human history. If I wanted to deliver a message to the same number of people, and I was today versus 20 years ago, I would have, or sorry, maybe 30 years ago, 40 years ago, I would have had to pay a lot of money to be in a 1-page ad in the New York Times. If I was 100 years ago, I would have to stand on a corner in Hyde Park and yell for days and weeks, hoping that the crowds would hear me. Today, boom, out there, and you have the possibility of being heard by the same or even, significantly more people. Yet we complain about censorship more than ever before. So there's a little bit of that kind of satire in the book, and I find that interesting. I hope it's done tastefully, and then the questions don't really form a real message. This is just more of an observation. My job as an author is to observe and to author a question, but I do find that pretty interesting. That we have more abilities today, faster speeds, the ability to travel everywhere that we want to be, and yet we feel almost even more confined than we ever have in our entire human history.
It's like so easy, I feel like, for us to take the humanity out of being human. And I don't know why we are doing this. I have a 12-year-old daughter, and yesterday she was on Pinterest. And, Pinterest is like an algorithm, so it's going to show you things that you like. And it's basically another social media platform. And And I had given her Pinterest thinking this will be better than getting her on. Like, I don't want her on any social media at this age. But I'm like, where in the internet can I take her where she won't just be manipulated? Where is a place that she can go to just get true inspiration? Like, where? Do I need to go get the magazines at the library? Like, what the heck? I'm glad we get to talk about books and we kind of get people off screens. Hopefully, I hope that we're getting people off of screens and into books more.
I was about to say that. I think that I love what you do and what your community does. And when you talk about how do we allow our children to learn about things but not be influenced negatively on the internet, books, tried and tested method. And I love what your father has done with you, how he brought you and your family up from what I've listened to you and on your podcast about you growing up. And we certainly are going to apply the same in our household. There's nothing wrong. There's nothing broken about reading a lot of books and learning about the world and about yourself through physical pages. And I think that the more you do, the better. And I am a huge supporter of your cause on Book Talk and everything. And I hope more and more people, you can reach more and more people and kind of influence the younger generation to read, because there's nothing more fun than picking up a book that you didn't expect was going to be good and then being completely sucked into it. That's how I grew up. And I think what you do is really exceptional. So thank you for doing that.
Oh, thank you so much for saying
Thanks,
that,
John.
John. That's
Sheesh.
so nice. I will say that one thing that intrigues me about AI is if in the next few years it is able to replace us, like if it can create a very engaging and fun and helpful, like visual content for people and actual creators are less needed. I just speculate about it. Like, obviously that would be sad if we got replaced, but also sometimes I think if AI is not sentient, and it is not ego-based and it's not self-perpetuating like we are. Like, as human beings, we're self-perpetuating. We all have egos. Sometimes I wonder if it would be more pure. Like, if it would be encouraging people to get off the app and go read a book. Yeah. Stop watching me, get off the app, go read a book. I think where it becomes dangerous, I think always in the movies and in the media where AI gets really scary is when it does want to self-perpetuate. When it wants to self-sustain and it develops an ego and a survival instinct. And then, of course, it always decides it wants to eradicate humanity.
Of course.
But it is interesting when we are in our most pure of heart, that is our intent is to watch us talk about a book and then shut off your phone and go read a book. But, we still have egos. Sometimes, like, also come back and watch all of our other videos because we're really fun.
Yeah. Well, look, I don't think you're at risk of that. Personally, because and I will borrow from Peter Burrell, AI without a soul is just Frankenstein's monster. So it lumbers around mimicking a human being, but it's not going to be a human being, and we'll know that. So to my future AI overlords, apologies for saying that, but I fundamentally believe that is true.
I do think that for better or worse, human beings do have an obsession with what is real. I don't think that we're always as focused as we should be on what matters and what's meaningful, but I do think we're all pretty obsessed with what's real and will always be attracted to what's real. And as much as we can be like seduced by perfection or efficiency or sparkle and glamour, I think that we always kind of come back to we want something real, and somehow we found that that's more meaningful.
I agree. I mean, there's the one story, Pucahoda, which is the Costa Rican resort story about Hollywood and Hollywood actors. I won't go into too much specificities, but that one, again, the tech in that book is not the villain. It is the human adaptation of that tech. So it is Hollywood, and again, Hollywood, doesn't have a glorious history for always doing the right things and being ethically focused. I'm okay with kind of making Hollywood the villain here in that story, but there you're absolutely right. It is, they have the ability to save significant costs by using AI production, but they know that humanity wants real, and so they've designed a contract to basically fool the unions, but also their audience into thinking that what they're seeing on screen is actually a real actor. So I think you're absolutely right. I think folks will want to see real. Let's just make sure the corporations that intermediate that realness don't take advantage.
Yeah.
Oh my
Yeah.
gosh.
It always comes back to, if humans are driving the bus, let's just hope they have a conscience.
I agree.
Oh my gosh. Well, John, this has been so pleasant. We would love to be very respectful of your time. I know you have to go and do your real job.
Yeah. I have to
But this was,
be an adult in the real world again. So thank you.
yes.
Tell everybody, though, where they can find you online, where they can buy your book, and find out about any future work you do.
Thank you. So you can find me online at johnfennec.com. That's John, FENNEC.com. I am also on Instagram and TikTok, as well as other media platforms. And you can find my book on online retailers near you, particularly Amazon is where you most likely will find it. So I really hope that you enjoy it.
I think I saw you have it on Kindle Unlimited right now. Is that true?
I have it on Kindle Unlimited. We have also an audiobook format. In an audiobook, just a quick note on the audiobook, there is the ability now to put your audiobook using AI voices. I chose not to do that for the, I wrote, this is an artifact from when humans, did the work themselves. So we got some incredible voice actors to do that work, and they did spectacular job. I was, hats off to them.
Oh, on the reread, I'm going to have to do that, because I
Yes.
feel like with the multiple points of views, and you said you had multiple actors, that's going to be
That'd be cool.
phenomenal. Yeah, I'll have to do that on my reread. That's so exciting. Well, thank you so much, John, for joining us. We loved your book. We hope everyone picks it up. And thanks to everyone for listening. We'll see you guys in the next episode.
Thank you so much.
Bye.